The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Tell Us Why, a podcast for the financial freedom community. If you're looking to succeed in your quest for financial freedom, make sure you join us every week as we, along with our guests, discuss different stories of success, how they were achieved, and how you can do the same. And of course, we ask them to tell us why. Here are your hosts, Jack and Mike.
Welcome to the Tell Us Why podcast. I'm your host, Jack Darapel, here alongside my co-host, Mr. Michael Ketchen. Today we will be joined by Raju Datla. Raju started his career in IT as a software developer. Through his various ventures during his career, he was turned on to real estate investing, is now an active and passive real estate investor. In addition, he is now podcasting and has a YouTube channel that delves into personal development, mindset, and entrepreneurship.
Good job. That was one little stutter.
A little bit. I almost got through the entire thing, but I didn't. But before we bring Raju in studio, Mike, what's going on?
Just another week coming up in the end of the year. Like I said, so iron out some goals, wrapping up some projects. 111 units kicking. Got a full month rent roll. Finally organized.
Perfect.
Oh, it's never easy. What about you?
So I got a new project I'm working on. It's a commercial, mostly commercial, technically mixed use, but mostly commercial. Something I haven't touched on before. So
a new venture there.
New venture. And then, like you said, end of the year stuff. Got the Tell Us Why goal setting. Got 11/24 goal setting. Got to bang that out.
Goal setting.
Get it prepared for 2022,
Speaking of goal setting, I think today's guest can definitely help with some of that. He's a great guy, and I can't wait to have him here. But before we do that, should we hear what this week's episode is brought to us by?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Are you sick of being treated like just another number by large insurance companies? Do you want a more personalized experience with somebody that you can trust? With Keith Monteith, that's exactly what you'll get. Keith is an experienced professional who can design an insurance plan tailored to fit your specific needs. With access to over 30 insurance carriers, Keith is able to shop numerous markets to find a price that works for you. So if you want an insurance agent that you can rely on and one that has your best interests at heart, then call or text Keith today on 978-241-2363. That's 978-241-2363. Keith Monty. He'll get you covered.
Okay, so Raju Datla spent 25 plus years in the IT profession as a software developer in various leadership roles. He is also a real estate investor, passively and active in AirBnb and Tax Deed investing, his latest venture. He is passionate about personal development, mindset, and spirituality. He is a podcaster and YouTuber that delves into mindset, spirituality and mindset.
And there it is, everyone. As the fans know,
oh man,
Jack can't read anything without going. So
I tried to slow down on that one too, and I still messed it up.
He still messed up.
Oh, brutal! Absolutely brutal.
Raju, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Hey, I've been there, man. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, the Tell Us Why community is lucky to have you. We're excited to have you here. You're going to be a great guest. And like I said, let's just really dive right into it before we kick off all the subjects I'm excited to get into. Where are you at kind of in your business, your investing, and your entrepreneurial ventures today?
So I'm still at my 9-to-5 IT consulting gig. I'm there. So that's where I'm at as far as the 9-to-5 job. The other side, obviously, the real estate investing, latest venture, Tax Deed. Just got into it about 8 weeks ago almost. So I haven't done my first deal yet. I'm expecting it to be coming soon in the next 2-3 weeks. And that's where my active investing is going. I got some passive investing going.
Yep.
And then I do, services business where we help realtors and real estate investors increase their revenues. That also, I'm hoping by mid next year or so, I will quit my IT job. I get paid really well in my IT job. So I need a lot of income to quit it. So,
well, that's actually one of the things we're excited to get into today for the community is we want to kind of show everybody that there's entrepreneurs from all walks of life. And I think we associate too often financial freedom and time freedom with what everyone thinks. Hurry up, quit, do it. Well, no, there's multiple ways to approach this. And I think what you just said there is so important. And we wanted to have you on because essentially, your 5 to 9 can then replace your 9 to 5. And these multiple streams of income and being able to sit back and say, let me leverage my high paying salary to get diverse of a multiple streams of income and also just really learn about new opportunities. And when we connected, and I was on a great avenue you do on LinkedIn, I think we can link to that in the show notes. We'll share it when it goes live, where you talk to different entrepreneurs and you're kind of connecting and networking. So what kind of led to this kind of entrepreneurial lifestyle and framework that you're operating in?
So it's a little bit of a long story. So I, obviously being an IT guy, dabbled in startups. I, tried one startup, it failed. Essentially, the couple of different founders and I didn't agree, and essentially I was booted out at that point. And then I was about to get into another. Me and my best friend were talking about several startups ideas because that's all I knew. I mean, IT guy. That's we were thinking always startup and all that stuff. I'm an IT geek at heart.
Yep.
At least 4 or 5 years ago. But 2017, I had a divorce. Our divorce got finalized, and I was like looking at different options because the startup wasn't going anywhere. My best friend, who I was talking to, wasn't moving as fast as I wanted to move. So then I got into this services business, which basically first got me into really normal entrepreneurship role, not related to IT.
Mm-hmm.
And that led me to being introduced to a lot of real estate investors.
Gotcha.
A lot of real estate investors, realtors I met through that business. And that started my personal development journey. The first book I read was Think and Grow Rich, and pretty much got me into a junkie for personal development.
That'll happen.
Yes, it will. It's Napoleon Hill.
So, and here I am. So essentially, I've met a lot of people, like you said, I've networked a lot and I've learned a lot of things. And that led me to believe my goal is to have at least 7 to 10 streams of income actually in real estate itself, because I discovered there's so many different avenues. I'm going to do that. And whatever makes sense at that point, that more streams I can add, that I can do more passively than active. So.
And can you tell the people at home, because we haven't spent a lot of time on that, so we'll throw it to you. You're on the hot seat now. What is the difference between a passive and an active investor, in your opinion, and why is that attractive to someone like you who's maybe got a high salary job?
So Tony Robbins said it best. If you're a business, or if you're doing your business like a 9-to-5 job and you always have to be there, then you're a business operator. You're not a business owner. So my goal is to be a business owner. That means I don't have to be there for me to make money or run the business. There's got to be systems or people who can do the job, who can do the work. That's one way. The other way is obviously like in passive investing, multifamily syndication or triple net leases. There's so many avenues. I mean, I have 2, say, independent, single family houses that I'm doing JV, but I'm not doing anything.
And what is a JV? Let's pretend what we like to do in the community, because we have all listeners of all types, from sophisticated, not sophisticated. We always put our guests on the hot spot. Talk to us like we don't know anything. What is a JV?
JV, joint venture deal.
Okay, and why might that be appealing?
It was appealing in this sense because it's a friend of mine. I don't have to do anything. Even the loan wasn't in his name. I'm putting in X amount of money. I'm getting one at 35% return, another one pretty much 100%, doubling my money in 6 months. And he's doing all the work. He's doing the construction. He's doing everything. He's doing the financing, everything. I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is give him the money. And we have a joint venture agreement, and 6 months, whatever time frame that project finishes, it'll get sold, and especially in this market, and I get the money. So it's completely, essentially passive in the sense I'm not doing anything there.
So you want to jump in on that?
I mean,
because I think that's incredible, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back, for me, this conversation goes back to Kiyosaki again. His cash flow quadrant, ESBI, employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor.
Investor, yes.
Yeah. And you want to, he stresses that you want to be on that lower right quadrant where you don't have to work, you get passive income, and that's ideally where you want to be.
Yes.
And I think, that's where I'm trying to go. I think that's kind of where I am, but that passive income is the best type of income in my eyes, at least. So,
Well, and again, the actionable tip there is we see it all the time, right? And I see it with people. Hey, I want to flip a house. Okay, well, you either have time, labor, or capital. Yeah. So there's a way to get involved. And what I always find interesting, Raju, and I'm curious if you could speak on this, because it seems like, as we were just talking, something that comes up a lot, the power of partnerships. Mm-hmm. I've noticed that people who are just starting out or people who might not be wealthy, partnering with them, they think of partners as massive undertaking, when in reality, the more successful you become, we're all just trying to partner on everything, because we realize, again, back to the multiple streams of income and tying it in. Yeah. And you just hit it right there. To reference that book, that's the cash flow quadrant, and Jack is referencing the investor quadrant, where something that, if you think about what Raju just said, if you're listening at home, he's in the employee quadrant, right? He's got a high, salary, right? But now he's leveraging, again, that word leverage we always talk about. He's leveraging that salary with that knowledge to get into multiple streams, which then leads to the next thing I'm going to hit you with that I wanted to talk to you about. And again, I think where maybe you don't give yourself enough credit as someone, just getting into this. You're performing at a high level, right, with your job. Yet you're doing all these other things, which tells me you are maximizing and you are optimizing your remaining free time. Do you have any tips on how to get knowledge on these various things and how you're spending your time to obtain knowledge about all these different type of investing vehicles you're looking into and operating?
So one is being intentional.
Yep.
I got several things in there, but one is being intentional. Two is having things on calendar whenever you want to get things done.
That's something I struggle with. So.
Three is time is a conversation in your mind. So I coach, in personal development, I coach people. One of the things I've discovered is time is always a conversation. So if it's important, you'll do it. If it's not, then you won't do it. So decide what's important, and don't give the excuse of you don't have time. If you say you don't have time, then that means it's not important to you. That's all it is.
Wow.
And we all have limited time, so we got to figure out what is important, and you do that way. And I've been asked several times by people like, hey, you do all these things. Where do you have time? I'm like, I don't feel that. I mean, I manage, because if it's not important, then I don't worry about it. Like, okay, I didn't do it because evidently it wasn't important to me. So, that's all it is. So that's, in my mind, it's as simple as that. And it can get complicated in the sense like there are things you have to do, but you don't feel it. And that's when the conversations come, okay, you said you will do it, you didn't do it. And that's where the calendar comes in handy. And whenever I forget to put stuff on calendar,
Same. I mean, I'm the same way. Like I think what you said to pull a mic is go back and to listen to that again.
Yes.
But I mean, the thing that I do personally is I put everything on my calendar. If I have to remember anything, I set a reminder. Hey, Google, remind me tomorrow at 10:30 to send this email or do this thing or whatever it is. Every single thing in my life is on my calendar. Yep. Everything, because I don't want to forget anything. And if I don't put it on my calendar, I'm not going to do it. That's just the way it is. That's the way I work. It's sad, but that's what I have to do to make sure the things that I need to get done do get done. And what you were alluding to is the stuff that's not important to people. They make excuses that it's not that they're like, oh, I want to own 100 units by next year. Yeah. Well, what are you doing? Are you implementing these small habits? Like, do you have these small habits on your calendar every week or not? Because if you don't, then you're not trying to get there. You want to be there, but you don't actually want to be there.
Yes.
So that's one of the things that I've found. And then just going back to what you started with, being intentional, I think that's one of the words that I hear a lot for extraordinarily successful people, whether they're intentional with their time, intentional with their business. Intentional seems to come up quite a lot in this space. And I just wanted to bring up that fact.
Well, he said something right there, Raju, that I want to go back to, I want to touch on too. It's also very important. It's something that myself, my own personal development, I'm trying to work through. So now I'm going to be selfish with this next question, as I know you do some coaching. Getting people to be comfortable saying no, safeguarding that time. Why is that so important to someone like yourself and to entrepreneurs and investors as a whole?
Yeah, that is something I struggled with earlier. Now I've learned to say no. I'm not going to say I'm really good at it even now.
The humble brag. All right, there it is.
So because that when especially if you network a lot, you get a lot of things thrown at you.
Yeah.
And a lot of things are really good too. Shiny objects, right? Those shiny objects.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So that's where it becomes critical that I have, right now I don't have it on the board, but at one point I wrote it on the board. These are my top 3 things. And if it doesn't fall in those category, I'm saying no.
Wow. Wow.
So
So simplistic,
that
but
is-
so powerful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we deal with that. I was just sharing a quick story where we bought a building 6 months ago. It's actually when we owned together. And it has a laundromat in it. And I saw the opportunity, 35% cash on cash return, all this stuff. I see it. I start, you know how my personality is. So I start going down the rabbit hole. Well, we doubled the size of my real estate investing company, and then we doubled again this year. So my return is a lot greater than 35%. Well, I finally had to have an honest conversation with myself. I picked up the phone. This just happened this week, and I called a guy who's really good at operating laundromats. And guess what? He's probably going to lease the space. And we're going to get a great tenant, and I'm going to get out of that shiny object syndrome again. But it just goes to show how quick we can fall into that trap. Because when you're an entrepreneur, you think you see value everywhere. And oftentimes we don't value our own time enough.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I like to tell people that, the ROI on my time is $10,000 an hour.
Yeah.
And you say that to people and they look at you, they go, "You're freaking nuts." I go, "All right, well, if I buy one building this year and it makes me $1 million in equity or $5 million in equity, cash flow, and debt pay down over 20 years, break that out hourly. You'd be shocked at the number you arrive at."
Yeah.
And that was kind of how I tried to safeguard my framework, similar to his 3 buckets. But you're constantly at war for your attention and your time. So definitely check out those tips. Which, speaking of that, to touch on the podcast real quick, why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what you got going on?
So I got 2 different things going on as far as, I guess, content is concerned. LinkedIn video, which you have been on, Michael, is my more, I guess, the one I do most. It's basically twofold, thing I do with that is basically get out other people's information out, like yours, like, hey, here's Michael, he does, this is what he does. And if you're looking to connect to a person like Michael, connect to him. Kind of do it like a marketing for them and also content creation for me. And it's a half and half. It's half about business, half about personal development, because that's my passion.
Yep.
My the other podcast is with a friend of mine. She's a syndicator herself, multifamily syndicator herself. So we started because she was trying to get into podcasting. At that point, I was almost a year into doing LinkedIn content. I said, I'll help her. So I got used to doing the interviews and stuff. She wasn't. And we decided, because we were both my spiritual and also mindset oriented. So we decided we'll do it together. So it's called Why, Mind, Body, and Entrepreneurship. So it's all about mindset, spirituality, and how all that, and the body, your health, how all that works into entrepreneurship. And essentially, we try to make it like a mini biography of an entrepreneur.
That's
and the
fascinating.
lessons and everything. So
Yeah. And where can people check that out? I'm assuming iTunes, Spotify.
everywhere, yeah.
Everywhere,
Wherever, pretty much podcasts are available. We're pretty much are on all the available channels, I think.
Awesome. I mean, that's how often do we talk about mindset?
Well, that's exactly what I was just going to bring up. Can we just dig into mindset for a second? I mean, I think mindset is I might say it's a first step, changing your mindset to any type of financial freedom, or anything that you want to do. It's a mindset first. Do you want to touch on that before we move on?
Sure. So my mentor first taught me this, and it stuck me, and I've now realized more and more in the last 3-4 years, I've started an entrepreneur journey. It's not the money and it's not whatever things I've gotten. It's who I've become. Is what I'm more grateful for.
Yep.
And that starts with personal growth, personal development. I mean, nobody can steal that.
Yep.
You can lose all the money, but who you become and the value you have become cannot be stolen. So you can always rebuild from whatever you lost, which actually Tony Robbins also said this several times. It's who you become that's more valuable than what you get.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty much sums it up for me as far as mindset and personal growth is. I mean, it's a number one thing for me. And, I guess we'll get into what I did for personal development if you want, but
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
yeah, absolutely. Why don't you touch on that? Because then I definitely have a follow up question to that. So, what did you do for personal development? Why don't you touch on that?
So other than the books like, Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad Poor Dad, actually I got my kids to read Rich Dad Poor Dad Poor Dad this summer, and their mindset is completely changed now.
Perfect.
My younger one wants to get into entrepreneurship.
Trying to get some assets instead of liabilities,
Yes, exactly. Just to show them the example, I sold my luxury car and bought a, common car just to show them.
Yeah.
So that, although I didn't need to, I just wanted to set an example.
Yeah.
But yeah, biggest one for me, other than the books, been Landmark worldwide.
Yep.
I highly, highly, highly recommend anybody, if they have the time, to do Landmark Forum.
And what is Landmark Forum? You want to touch on that real quick?
Sure. Landmark Forum is a personal transformation. I wouldn't call it personal development. Yeah, it's a personal development space, but it's more transformation, which is quite different from, like, you can go to Tony Robbins or you can go to all these seminars and you can change yourself maybe, but that's not what Landmark Forum does. Landmark Forum, what it does is it essentially transforms you.
Okay.
You become a different person.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. We'll check that out. And
Googling it right now. I want to check that out.
Yeah, and if you got any, what would you recommend coming out of that? Because that will then lead to my exact next question that's come to me during this podcast. So what kind of impact did that have on you?
Oh, so many things. So one of the things that stops us is a lot of things in our personal life. We don't think that really relates to our business, but it does.
Okay.
Your childhood, how you grew up, and whatever resentments or whatever things you have in your life,
beliefs,
and it's hidden.
Yeah.
The thing about us is there's things that we know, and there are things we don't know that we don't know, but there are a lot of things that we don't know what we don't know. That means we're completely blind to it.
Yep.
And that's what Landmarks helped you discover, the blind spots that are stopping you. Like, hey, I want to work out every day, but I'm not doing it. Why? I get up and do 3 days and then I stop. Why?
Sounds like I have a landmark moment. Yeah. We'll have to check that out, which, that's one thing I want to touch on here before we start peppering you with the question. I think it's so important. One thing that I've noticed throughout my life, and it's kind of funny because there's two people who either get it eventually or don't, and it sounds like you definitely got it, is the importance and impact of coaching. And I find that coaching is one of these big buzzwords, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm even going to point out something that's happened, not to shout out another podcast, but I'm going to do it anyways because I think it's fascinating. I want to touch on it. I actually want to have a whole Tell Us Why podcast on it. Bigger Pockets was like the godfather of real estate podcast for us. It's the guy.
Yeah.
Well, what's happening over there, and to bring it back to you full circle, is one of the hosts, one of the founders, is now one of the biggest advocates for coaching and performance when the entire website is built on basically downplaying and poo-pooing coaching.
Yeah.
So the irony going on is his business is taken off, and now he's involved with performance coaching and all this, and he credits it why their business model wants you to think that coaching and stuff doesn't work. And it's one of those, I tell people, words are worthless, look at actions.
Yes.
So how do you feel about coaching, and maybe where has it shown up in your own life? If you could touch on that for a few minutes.
Everywhere. It's basically, like I say, explain Landmark. I got into it because my mentor, who's a kind of a coach for me, asked me to do it. Various reasons. It's a long story, but basically we were talking about something in our business and he asked me some questions and I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? And then he asked me, did you attend Landmark? Because you told me a long time ago I didn't. So I thought I knew. I was reading all these books. I'm into big time personal development. I'm a changed person, but no. But that's where I learned coaching, and me coaching has helped me get coached myself.
Okay.
So, as part of the program, I coach communication courses as an assisting, in the courses as a coach, where we get assigned X number of students or people in the, seminars, and we coach them through the course and after the course.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been, so what we call in there is, long story short, is coaching is a discovery. You're discovering with your coachee. You're not trying to coach them. You're just there with them as a partner.
Gotcha.
And that really was an eye-opener for me. And then me, I've noticed, like, if I have a coach and if I have somebody holding me accountable, I do things differently than not having. Having said that, I still resist.
That's human nature, I think. And
Right, human nature. We think we are coachable. Like, I used to think I was coachable, but it shows up, because if somebody is not accomplished, I can't listen to them. I can only listen to people who are accomplished, and I'm like, okay, you did it, so I'll listen to you. I'll do whatever you say.
It's so funny. You're just too polite. We say that here. If someone's not in life where you want to be, politely take their advice and then tell them shut the fuck up. So like I said, you're just way too nice and way too PC for that. But that was a great answer. So now, like I said, we're gonna start peppering you with some questions. I think we have.
Kick it off with, I know you kind of mentioned the Landmark Forum, but what book or resource would you recommend to our listeners?
So other than Landmark Forum, the recent books that have really kind of changed my world in the sense is, one is Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. Other than Think and Grow Rich, I already mentioned Think and Grow. Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer.
I'll check that. I haven't heard of that.
And then I would say Happy Pocket Full of Money.
Happy Pocket Full of Money. These are two good ones. We haven't heard of these two.
No.
Happy Pocket Full of Money.
Yeah,
we'll link to those in the show notes.
Awesome book about law of attraction, quantum theory, and how science and spirituality kind of combine, which is where I was. I used to, call myself an atheist, like 2-3 years ago. And that whole thing changed, because once I understood science and spirituality are no longer that far apart anymore.
That's so interesting. That's fascinating.
It is interesting.
All right, well, it is time. I don't know if you've seen it, Raju, yet or not, but we're going to hit you with the big three, and then we'll put you on the hot seat. But before we do that, should we hear who the big three is brought to us by?
Let's do it.
It's now time for the Big Three segment, brought to you by QS Private Lending. Are you looking to finance your next deal quickly and reliably with less hassle and paperwork? QS Private Lending is one of the oldest and largest hard money lenders to real estate investors in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. Our quick and simple short-term loans require no appraisals and have enabled hundreds of builders and investors to profitably acquire and renovate thousands of residential and commercial properties. To experience the QS difference for yourself, call or text Luke Conroy today at 315-323-0250. That's 315-323-0250. QS Private Lending.
Okay, so it is now time for the big three. These are the three questions we ask every guest every week, and we'll start with the college question. So, in your opinion, is college worth it?
I love the reactions.
I guess I would say it's worth it if you just want to start off.
Yeah.
Which is something I've struggled with now telling my kids, because my kids are in college. One has full ride scholarship. The other one had a full ride, but we're paying for it. And after she read Robert Kiyosaki, she kind of doesn't want to do college. But I think it depends on the person. Just if you do not have resources, perhaps you still do college. College is good in some ways if you have a passion for it. Like I was passionate about computers, IT. Fine, yes, but you can do IT even without college, but that's a different story. But let's say some kind of specialization, yes. But if you're doing like a general degree, which doesn't do anything in the world, you're wasting your time.
And that's kind of how we tend to feel, but we anger a couple people on. The guest we had on last week was here from a college, so we had to kind of tap dance around that one. But we asked that question just for that reason, so that's awesome. All right. What is one piece of actionable advice you would go back and give to your 18-year-old self?
Don't think about just job.
Yep. Oh, expand on that. I like that.
If somebody gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad at that time, my life would have been different. Even if somebody gave me 10, 15 years ago, my life would have been different. So.
But ask yourself at 18, were you surrounded by the right people to even receive the message from Rich Dad Poor Dad? Because when I first read it at 21, then read it again at 31, I was two completely different people.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
That could be true, but there was no environment where that was possible for me, where, entrepreneurship was any case. It was job, or, back in India, that was a different environment.
Yep.
US, it's different. You can, anytime be an entrepreneur.
Gotcha.
India was different at that time. Now it's different now there too. But
context matters, and that's also something that I think a lot of times we take for granted here. I tell people, if you live here, you won the lottery. If you were born here, you won the Mega Millions.
Yes.
It's all about that mindset shift again. So, all right, hit him with the hard one.
All right. So what is one thing you would want your 90-year-old self to say to you?
That you did what you did, and no regrets. If you failed, you failed. And that's all there is to it. You made those choices because those were the choices you made. That's all there is to it.
God, that is so good. Go back and listen to that, because if you unpack that, this is someone who is truly so comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah.
And I just think you must have such a clarity to your decision-making process, and it shows up. And that was a great answer. That was unbelievable.
I appreciate it. I don't know if I have such a clarity, but
well, I as someone from the outside looking in, I think you're a very impressive entrepreneur and an all-around great guy. And any parting words for the Tell Us Why community?
Well, talking about Tell Us Why, if your why is not strong enough, then you will never get your how. You'll always struggle for your how. So how is not important. If your why is really strong, then you will figure out the how anyhow.
That's so good.
I like that a lot.
All right. Where can people find out more about you? Check out the podcast. Where can people get in touch with you?
Best is LinkedIn. I love to connect with people. Anytime I can provide value to people, I'm more than happy to do that. So LinkedIn, Raju Datla, and Instagram, I'm there too, but Instagram is more for, I don't know, my podcast promotions and all that stuff. So
Awesome. Well, check out Raju. Thank you for being here. And Jack, where can people learn more about Tell Us Why and connect with us?
You can find us on social media, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. We going to announce the website yet?
Not yet. We're still working through that. But website coming.
All the links are in the description below.
And then you can also check us out live in the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe in Salem, New Hampshire. We record most Wednesdays. And also, make sure you check out the swag. We've got a lot of holiday shopping going on. Link in the show notes for the Shop Cartel Tell Us Why swag. All right, quote of the week.
Wrap it up with the quote of the week. Once your mindset changes, everything on the outside will change along with it. Steve Maraboli.
Very good.
Boom.
I like that one. All right.
That's it for today. Be sure to join us for next week's episode. And until next week,
bet on yourself.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.